Hello creative people, welcome back to the channel. This is Evelyn Green, I am a Spanish illustrator and today is the big day. We're finally tackling the hair and that adorable kitten fur. Remember that sketch we started a few videos back? We've brought it to life with the girl's face and outfit and now it's time to add some depth. So have your favorite brushes handy because we're about to unlock some shading secrets for luscious locks and cute fluffy fur. So let's dive into it. Alright, so first things first, let's start by creating a new layer on top of our hair layer. We'll use a clipping mask set to multiply mode and this will keep our shading nice and contained within the hairlines. Now I'm gonna grab my trusty new sketch brush and I'm gonna select the same beautiful brown color that we use for the hair base. I like to start by blocking in some basic shades and I try to place them on areas where the hair would naturally be darker, like behind her back and near her neck. Once I'm happy with the basic shadows, I'll dial down the opacity of the multiply layer just a little bit so the shadows blend more naturally with the base hair color. Now we need to add even more dimension. I'll create another layer set to multiply and this time I'm switching to my hair detail brush. I'm going to adjust the brush size and with a very light touch I'll continue shading by focusing on those naturally darker areas like behind her head and near the roots. I repeat this process 2 more times, each on a separate multiplied layer. The key here is to progressively decrease the size of your brush with each layer. This lets you focus on those tiny details and really build up that gorgeous hair texture. It's like adding layers of depth, one brush stroke at a time, and this brush is just perfect for it. Alright, so now for the fun part, adding those individual hair strands. We'll create a new layer set to multiplied mode. I'm switching back to my trusty sketch brush and this time with the size reduced a bit, I'm going to start drawing lines where the hair strands will naturally flow. I like to begin with the fringe and then work my way down. I really like this technique because these lines will help integrate the first layer of shading that we've created and making the hair look a bit more natural. Once we have those darker hair strands in place, let's add some beautiful shine. We'll create a new layer and this time we're going to switch the mode to add. This mode helps lighten things up, which is perfect for highlights. I'm going to keep this sketch brush and I'm going to draw lines in the gaps between the multiply hair strands to create a mane full of depth and dimension. Alright, so now that the hair is done, it's time to give our furry friend some love. We'll be using a similar technique with multiplied layers to add those realistic shadows to the kitten's fur. First, let's create a new layer set to multiply and grab that same grey colour that we used for the fur base. Using my sketch brush, I'll start by blocking in some basic shadows in those areas where the girl's hand might block the light and behind the kitten's ears. Because we drew the cat on 3 different layers, I'm going to repeat this exact process on those 3 different layers. And before we continue shading, I just realized that the kitten's ears are not done yet, so I'm just going to go to the layer where I've got the kitten's cheeks drawn, and I'm going to choose my favorite shade of pink and draw the cat's inner ear. Alright, so now that the ears are in place, we can finally get back to the business of shading the fur, so let's pick up where we let off. Now that those basic shadow areas are blocked in, let's start building up some smoother shading. We'll create a new layer set to multiply, and this time I'm grabbing my smooth shades brush and I'm going to use a gentle motion to create smooth shadows. I'm going to repeat this exact process on all the layers of the kitten's body. And before we move on with the shading, I'm going to select the layer that we use for the kitten's mouth, nose and eyes, and I'm going to change its blending mode to multiply because I want to darken the cat's features and give it a bit more contrast. Then I'm going to give the fur a bit of dimension, starting with the cat's face. I'll create a new layer set to multiply and select my denim brush. I'm going to use it all over the kitten's face, focusing on the darkest areas. Once I've done that, I'm going to open a new layer below all the shading layers and set it to screen mode. I'll use the same brush again, but this time I'm going to focus on the lighter areas of the picture. This will give the fur a very nice texture. And with the face looking good, we'll use the same technique on the rest of the kitten's body. Remember, multiply for shadows and screen for highlights. We'll create new layers accordingly, focusing on those darker and lighter areas just like we did on the face. This will give the kitten's fur a beautiful texture dimension. Alright, so for some extra fur details, we'll be using a similar technique to what we did with the girl's hair. I'll grab my sketch brush again, and on a new layer set to multiply, I'll use short flicking motions to add some darker strands of fur all over the kitten. Once I have those darker details in, I'll switch gears and add some highlights. I'm going to use the same brush, but this time on a new layer set to screen mode. Don't forget to repeat this process on all the kitten's fur layers for a cohesive look. And the little kitten is finished, but come to think of it, she'll look even cuter with a nice little pink color. So I'm going to create a new layer for the color and place it strategically below the kitten's face layer and body layer. And this way the color sits nicely on the fur. And I'm going to grab my favorite pink color and fill in the color shape. No need to get too fancy here, because a simple outline will do the trick. And once the base is in, I'm going to add some subtle shadows for dimension. I'm going to create another layer set to multiply, and a simple brush with a few strokes of shadow will be more than enough to make the tiny details pop. And to complete the look, our little kitty needs a bell, so I'm going to create another layer on top of the collar layer and draw a small round shape for the bell. Once the bell shape is in, I'm going to add slight shadow and highlight using the same multiply and screen mode techniques that we use for the fur, because it will give the bell a little bit of dimension. Alright, so now that our duo is complete, let's add some love to the background and really make them pop. I'm going to open a new layer just above the two existing background layers, and I'm going to add some stars and sparkles. I'm going to try and use pink on top of the white background and a dark blue on top of the light blue background. In order to use so, I'm going to use my sketch brush because it is perfect for small details like this. And the pink and blue stars are not quite what I envisioned, so let's try something different to create a more harmonious color scheme. To make adjustments easily, I'm going to select the stars layer and set it to alpha log because this confines our edits to the existing stars that we drew without affecting the background itself. And once that's done, I'm just going to play around with some colors from our established palette and see what pops. And there we have it, our illustration is complete. What do you think the little girl is whispering to her kitty friend? Let your imagination run wild and let me know in the comments. Also, don't forget to give this video a like if you find it useful and subscribe to my channel where I'll be uploading videos every Sunday. You can also follow my illustration journey on Instagram @EverlyGreenArt, where I post all my illustrations, including this one here. Thanks for creating along with me today. Have a lovely day and see you in the next video. Bye!